Bruchim Haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Tzadik Dalid Amud Beis, 10 lines from the top. The Gemara brings a brisa, a dispute between the Chachamim and the Chachmei Umois HaOilam. Says the Gemara, Ton Rabban, Chachmei Yisrael Oimrim, Galgal Kavua Umazolois Choisrin. The Chachmei Yisrael, they hold that there's a Galgal. The Galgal is a wheel, and they hold that the Galgal is Kavua, meaning to say that inside of the Galgal are Mazolos. The Galgal remains fixed, whereas the Mazolos, the constellations, they move within the Galgal, and they themselves will move the movement of the sun. Whereas the Chachmei Umois say no, the Galgal is moving, and that itself causes the constellations to move. But the constellations rather are fixed. In other words, the Mazolos are fixed, and the Galgal moves. Omar Rebbe says, Teshuva lidivreihem. He's going to ask a kasha on the Chachmei HaUmois. Me'olam lo matzinu egla bedoram ve'akrov b'tzofin. We never find egla, the constellation, being other than in the south, and akrov, Scorpio, to be in the north. And therefore, since it's, according to what you're saying, as it moves the Galgal, therefore it also causes the constellations to move as well. And according to you, we don't find that to be true. We don't find that there to be different positioning at all. It always stays fixed in the same place. Maski of Acha bar Yaakov. Acha bar Yaakov, he challenges this, and he says, "V'dilma bebotzina de reichaya." Maybe he says it's like the botzina de reichaya. There's a mill, and the mill has an iron piece that while the mill is moving, but the iron piece stays still. So here too, over here, that when it comes to the constellations, they themselves stay still, not like we thought. They don't move, even though the Galgal itself moves. Inami kitzinora dedosha, or like the tzinora dedosha, they used to have the doors was connected to like had a hole that would be, let's say, in the ground. So although the hinge would move the door, but the actual part that was connected to the ground, that would stay stationary. So to over here again, although the Galgal, the wheel, moves, but the Mazolos stay in place. Not like we thought before that they said that the Galgal moves and the Mazolos will also move within it. Omar Rebbe makes the following statement. Chachmei Yisrael oimrim bayoim. Another statement that Chachmei Yisrael say, bayom, during the day, chamo mehaleches lamato min hakarka. The chamo, the sun, it goes behind, or what we call inside, of the rakia. Ubalayla lamala min harakia. And at night, you don't see it because it goes on the, so to speak, outside. It becomes then something that cannot be discernible. V'chachmei umos ha'olam oimrim, where they say, Bayoim chamo mehaleches lamata min harakia. They say no, that the sun is always going to be between the rakia and the earth. And balayla lamata min harakia, whereas at night it'll be, so to speak, underneath or behind the rakia. Omar Rebbe says, Nirin divrayim midivreinu. It appears to have a proof like the Chachmas HaUmois. Shebeyoim mayonos soinenin ubalayla roischin. Because he says, during the day, the mayonos, the well springs, they are cold. Whereas at night it is hot. And that seems to fit with the Chachmei HaUmois, who say that at night, or starting with the day, so the sun is always between the rakia and the earth. But at night, it's underneath it's going to be underneath, whereby since it's underneath the earth, it will also then cause the well springs, mayonos, to then heat up. Tanya, the Gemara brings a brayso, Rabbi Nosson Oimer, b'mois hachamo, chamo mehaleches b'goyve shel rakia. During the summer days, he says, the sun, it's going to be in a state where it's relative to the ground, like 90 degrees above the ground. So it'll be high above the ground, above the earth. Therefore, the whole world will be hot. But the mayonos will be cold, because since it's above the sun, doesn't get to the mayonos at the distance where it's at. However, whereas during the rainy season, then in the winter we say that the chama is going more at like a 180 degree angle from where the earth, in the rakia, from the earth, and therefore the fika kol ha'olam kulo tzainin. Therefore, it's going to be causing the earth to be cold, umayonos roischim, because it's going to be closer to the mayonos. So therefore, it's going to be heating up the waters. The Gemara brings another brayso. Tanu Rabbanan be'arbo shvilin cham maleches. There are different forces of the sun depending on their different places. Nisan, Iyar, v'Sivan, maleches behorim kedei lefashes hashlogim. During the months of Nisan, Iyar, and Sivan, then the sun goes towards the mountains, and that then causes the snow to melt. Tammuz, Av, Ve'elu, those 3 months, Mahaleches b'yishuv kedei levashes haperos. The force of the sun is such that it goes close to the yishuv to then bake the fruits to become then ripened. Tishrei, Mar Cheshvan, v'Kislev, Mahaleches b'yomim kedei layabesh es hanaharos. That's the force of the sun, whereby it's going to be going towards where the water is, and that will then cause the waters, the naharos, to dry up. Tevesh Shvat ve'Adar mehaleches b'midbar shelo yabesh es hazroim. Whereas the last 3 months of Tevesh Shvat and Adar, they have a force of the sun that's mahaleches by the midbar, and that causes the seeds to dry up. The Gemara now brings the Mishnah. There was a machlokes in the Mishnah. What's considered to be the p'tur of derech rechoika, where you're not be chayiv kores? The Tanna Kama said that that's going to be 15 meal, the way the Gemara explains. Where you go to Modi'in or beyond. Where Rabbi Eliezer argued, and he says, even within Yerushalayim, me'iskupas ulamala v'lachut is going to be considered to be outside of Yerushalayim. That means right outside the Azara. The Gemara asks, the Gemara points out, first of all, va'afar of the matzi aisle, even though he can go in if he would like to, in other words, he's capable of entering Yerushalayim, he's right outside the Azara. Says the Gemara, v'lo yamrinon le kum aisle, we don't say to him, get up and go inside, that he's going to be potter from kares. Says the Gemara, v'hatanya, behold, we have a brayso that states, orel shaloi mal onush kares. Div Rabbi Lesin. Rabbi Lesin himself says that a person who is an orel, who did not have yet a bris milah, now he's prevented from being a korban pesach. Well, since he's capable of making a bris milah, becoming circumcised, and then being able to partake in a korban pesach, in other words, even that afternoon of Yudale ben Nisan, technically he can be circumcised. And there we say, if he doesn't, since he is capable of doing so, he'll be chayiv kares, says Rabbi Eliezer. So too over here, how can we say over here that if he's outside the Azara, that's considered to be derech rechoika? Hare, he's capable of walking inside. Omar Abaye says, derech rechoika letohor, vein derech rechoika letamei. Abaye explains that the patur of derech rechoika are for those who are tohor. And those who are tamei don't have a patur of derech rechoika. That's a different type of circumstance. There, the reason why he's tamei is potter is because he's not capable of eating from the korban pesach at night, and therefore it's a different type of measurement of reason why one is potter. So therefore, over here as well, when it comes to derech rechoika, the very fact that he's considered to be rechoik itself is a patur. It's not a matter of him being capable to enter or not. Whereas when it comes to tamei, There, if a person is able to retire himself, then he's held accountable. The only thing is he's potter because he's not able to be retire himself. Therefore, he can't partake in the Keren Pesach. So it's a different criteria. Rava Amar Tanoi. Rava has a different explanation. He says it's a machlokes Tanoim. The Tanya states, Rabbi Eliezer Oimer, Nemar Richuk Mokom BaPesach, v'Nemar Richuk Mokom BeMaiser. It says in both places, by Maiser as well as by Keren Pesach, that there is something called Richuk HaMokom. By Maiser, it means to say that if a person is outside Yerushalayim in a way that it's going to be cumbersome for him to bring the fruit of the Maiser Sheni into Yerushalayim, he's able to be poideh the fruit onto a matbeya, bring the coin to Yerushalayim, and buy food with it, and eat it in Yerushalayim. So there's a petur of somebody who cannot bring the fruit in if he's in a distant place. So too, in regards to Keren Pesach, when he's at a derech rechoika, then he has a petur from being Keren Pesach, and he's potter from the chiyuv kares. He's pushed off into the Pesach Sheni. And now we learn the following analogy. Ma lahalan chutz la'achilosoi, afkan chutz la'achilosoi. So here, Rabbi Lesin says, just like over there by the Meiser Sheni, he's outside of the place where he can eat, namely Yerushalayim. So too over here, he's outside of Yerushalayim, and therefore he's going to be potter. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Oimer, Mishum Rabbi Eliezer, he said name Rabbi Eliezer differently. He says, Chutz la'asiyaso. The analogy with Meiser Sheni is la'asiyaso. Just like by Meiser Sheni, the making of the Meiser Sheni, again, is outside Yerushalayim. But over here, and therefore you can go ahead and use that petur of Rachoik. But over here by Keren Pesach, the asiyasoi is in the carbon itself. And therefore, to be makri of the Keren Pesach that's in the Azara, any place outside of the Azara is considered to be defined as richuk haderech, whereby he has the petur, and he's not going to be chayiv kares. Ask the Gemara, Kaman azlo hodam Rabbi Yitzchak bar Rav Yosef. Like who does the following statement Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef go like? B'tmeim, he said, holach achar roiv ha'im d'mazora. He said, when we define tmeim, let's say we want to say that the roiv of the tzibur is tamei meis, whereby we have a rule that even though they're tmeim, but since it's the roiv, they can go ahead and partake, they can go ahead and bring the Keren Pesach and even consume it. How do we define the roiv? So according to this statement, the tmeim are holach achar roiv ha'oin d'mazora, where they are standing in the azara. If they're the roiv, are standing in the azara to be, the roiv of the tzibur are in the azara, they are tamei, then we can say that it's doiche, the Keren Pesach, or rather the Keren Pesach is doiche, the tuma rather, whereby they can partake and then shech the Keren Pesach and eat the Keren Pesach. But it depends on where they're standing, if they're within the azara. Kiman, who is this like? Gemara explains, this is like Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda, Shom Mishum Rabbi Eliezer, like the latter statement that we just made, that he says that you go after the Asiyah. And since the Asiyah of the Keren Pesach is in the Azara, anywhere outside of the Asiyah, outside of Yushala, of the Azara, is considered to be defined as Derech Rechoike, whereby he'll be potter and be exempt from the Chiyuv of Kares.